You shouldn't be watching this alone.
The woman who crawled out of my basement wall. I always hated the basement in my rental house, mostly because it smelled like wet stone and old insulation, but also because the walls seemed to sweat even on cold nights. Every time I walked past the basement door, the air felt heavier, as if the house was holding its breath, waiting for me to open it and climb down those groaning wooden steps. I kept telling myself the moisture and strange drafts were normal for a place this old, but the truth is something about the basement felt alert, like it listened when I moved. It started with tapping inside the concrete wall behind the water heater, a rhythmic sound too deliberate to be dripping pipes, almost polite at first, like someone trying not to disturb me. I tried ignoring it, but the tapping grew more impatient, always starting around the time I got home, as if it could sense I had returned and wanted acknowledgement. One night, the tapping shifted into slow dragging, like nails scraping along the inside of the wall, digging carefully, steadily, carving out space where none should exist. The landlord insisted the house had no crawl space, but the wall sounded hollow now, as if something behind it had made room for itself, pushing outward with soft, patient pressure. I kept the basement light on constantly, hoping brightness would discourage whatever pressed from the other side, but it only made the shadows gather in new, uncomfortable shapes. Some mornings I found dust pooled beneath the wall, smeared like something had crawled through it with dirty hands, leaving the faint outline of fingers in the powder. I began locking the basement door, even though I lived alone, a small comfort against the feeling that something down there was learning the layout of my home. At night, I heard shifting beneath the floorboards, deliberate and unhurried, as if it crawled with the confidence of something that believed it would reach me eventually. I placed a chair under my bedroom door handle, a ridiculous move that somehow made me feel safer, though the house didn't seem impressed by my effort. By then, I'd started recording the basement with an old phone, hoping to catch proof. I wasn't imagining everything, a video I could show someone before they dismissed me. The first night I checked the footage, I saw nothing but the trembling bulb above the steps, until a frame near dawn showed the wall gently swelling outward like a lung drawing air. The next night, the footage caught cracks forming in a perfect vertical line, tiny at first, and widening as something pale pressed between them, pushing stone aside like soft clay. I paused the video just before a thin hand emerged, fingers long and trembling, nails dark with grit, reaching into the open basement air, as if testing its temperature. Every instinct told me to leave the house immediately, but the landlord wouldn't pick up, and guilt twisted in me. This place was all I could afford, and I had nowhere else. That night, I slept with the basement door barricaded, listening to the soft knock against the other side, the same patient rhythm that had started all of this. The knocking stopped just before sunrise, replaced by a dragging sound moving slowly across the concrete floor, circling beneath me like a predator mapping its cage. I didn't check the footage that morning. Seeing what it wanted me to see felt like an invitation, one it had been preparing for too long. By evening, the house felt different, warmer somehow, as if my uninvited guest had finally stepped out of the wall and was adjusting to the temperature of its new environment. When I opened my bedroom door, I found dusty handprints on the hallway floor, spaced unnaturally far apart, like someone had crawled using limbs longer than a human's. The trail stopped at the basement door, which now sat slightly open even though I had wedged it shut, the chair knocked aside like it weighed nothing. Inside, the basement was silent, dust unsettled everywhere, but the part of the wall where it had crawled through looked smooth, freshly healed, as though nothing had ever broken it. I stepped slowly down the wooden stairs, each creak echoing through the house like it announced my presence to something waiting below. The light flickered overhead, then steadied, revealing the water heater pushed aside and the wall glistening with a thin smear of something pale and wet. Standing there, I realized the wall wasn't sweating, it was leaking, like fresh skin stretched over a wound still healing, sealing the entry point behind whatever had crossed through. I backed up the stairs without turning around, certain that if I looked over my shoulder, I'd see her waiting in the shadow beneath them. That night, I felt her in the house with me, heard the soft scratch of nails on drywall, slow and curious, tracing my bedroom walls like she was learning my outline. I tried whispering to myself that she wasn't real, that I needed sleep, but exhaustion made my thoughts soft, and something in the room shifted when I closed my eyes. I don't remember falling asleep, but I remember waking to the sensation of her breath, warm against my ear, as if she had leaned close enough to smell my dreaming. The room was empty when I opened my eyes, but a streak of dust on the floor showed where she had dragged herself out, fingertips trailing lightly toward the bed. I moved out the next morning, leaving the house exactly as it was, though part of me still wonders if she followed, curious about the only person who ever listened back. Sometimes, late at night, I hear faint tapping in my new apartment's walls, polite at first, patient, almost grateful, as if she finally found where I sleep. If you're still here in the dark with me, it helps more than you know stories like this keep the shadows from getting too close, and there's always room for one more listener. The man who stood inside my bedroom window. I noticed the first smudge on the glass after work, a long streak across the inside of my bedroom window, too high for me to reach without standing on something. I tried wiping it off, but the smear only spread, like an oily handprint had been dragged downward by someone watching me sleep from inches away. That night, I locked every door and window twice, trying to convince myself the mark was just condensation or a trick of the light rather than evidence of someone inside. I woke around 3 a.m. to a soft tapping, not on the window, but from the wall beside my bed, the kind of tap someone makes with a single finger to test if you're awake. When I turned on the light, the room sat still, except the curtains swayed slightly, as though someone had just slipped behind them a moment earlier. I stood frozen until sunrise, staring at those curtains, convinced they bulged out just enough to hide the shape of someone pressed tightly against the wall. By morning, fresh fingerprints covered the inside of the glass, long, narrow, smudged from the inside out, as if someone leaned their forehead there and breathed quietly while watching me. I installed a camera facing the window, hoping to capture a rational explanation, though deep down, I already feared what I would see on the screen. The first night's footage showed nothing except the curtains shifting, moving too deliberately for any draft, sliding aside like someone stepped out and vanished before the camera adjusted. The next night, the footage glitched at 3:11 a.m., freezing a frame of something tall, standing inches from the camera, its face blurred, its hand pressed flat against the lens. When the feed resumed, the window was open half an inch, even though I had latched it tightly and pushed a dresser against it before bed. I kept telling myself moisture could mimic handprints, but the prints grew more defined, each finger impossibly long, nails sharp enough to leave tiny scratches in the glass. One evening, I came home to find the window fully closed, yet the latch undone, and muddy footprints on the carpet leading straight toward my bed. The footprints stopped at the edge of the mattress, toes pointed inward, as if someone had stood there watching me sleep long before I ever woke. I dragged the dresser away, pulled the curtains down, and spent the night in my car, gripping the steering wheel, ashamed of how small I felt hiding from something I couldn't explain. By the next morning, the window had fogged evenly, except for a perfect circle wiped clean, the size of a face pressed there, as if searching for me. I replaced the lock with one that required a key from both sides, but even that felt like a gesture of false security in a space he clearly understood better than I did. That night, I heard breathing from the corner of the room, slow and deep, like someone adjusting to the dark, becoming part of it, preparing to move closer. I tried speaking aloud, hoping my voice would fill the space and reveal any intruder, but the room felt heavier with every word, as though something listened intently. When I turned on the light, the corner was empty, but the carpet fibers were indented in the shape of two bare feet, as if someone had been standing there moments before. I stepped backward, refusing to look away, hearing the window creak behind me. Even though it should have been locked tight with both keys still on my ring. The light flickered once and came back, revealing a fresh handprint on the glass, this time from the outside, pressed flat against the pane, centered at eye height. The print was identical to the ones inside, the same long fingers and sharp nails, the same unnatural spacing. Like whoever left it moved seamlessly between inside and out. I checked the footage again, but the camera had been turned to face the wall, recording nothing but the blank surface like someone wanted privacy to enter. I pushed my bed into the hallway that night, slept on the floor near the front door, clutching the keys, listening to the faint tapping return inside the bedroom. It sounded patient, like someone tracing their nails lightly across the glass, reminding me they knew exactly where I slept and how far I'd moved. At dawn, I cracked the bedroom door open and found the curtains neatly rehung, swaying slightly as though he had walked through them moments earlier. My pillows lay arranged on the bed, indented in the shape of a head, as if someone had tried to sleep there while I hid outside the room. I moved out before sunset, leaving behind the camera, the curtains, and the window that no longer felt like a barrier, but an invitation for him to return. Sometimes in my new apartment, I'll wake to the faint sound of tapping not on the windows, but from inside the closet, slow and patient, testing the distance between us. And when I check the mirror in the morning, I see a greasy smudge near my shoulder, the shape of fingers resting there gently, as if he's practicing standing close again. If you're still listening, it keeps me brave enough to stay here one more night, because something tells me he likes it when I tell these stories, almost like I'm leaving the window open. The voice that whispered through my air vents. I first heard the whisper while brushing my teeth, a thin voice drifting through the bathroom vent, like someone trying to speak underwater, soft enough to make me doubt I heard anything at all. At night, the whisper returned, clearer this time, carrying just enough breath to sound like a person exhaling words they didn't want anyone else to hear. I leaned close to the vent, expecting to catch a draft or the hum of the old building, but what I heard instead was my name spoken slowly, like a secret being tested. I stepped back immediately, heart pounding, convincing myself someone upstairs must have left their TV on, even though my building had no upstairs, and the unit above me was vacant. When I asked the landlord if maintenance was working in the ducts, he just shrugged, insisting no one had accessed the vents in years, not since the last tenant disappeared suddenly. That night, the whisper returned with a scraping sound behind it, like fingers dragging lightly across sheet metal, searching for a way to get closer. I taped the vent shut with thick packing tape, layering strips until I could pretend the voice wouldn't slip through any remaining gaps. Around 3 a.m., I woke to the sound of the tape peeling back slowly, the adhesive stretching in long, sticky strands, as if someone was unwrapping a present. When the tape finally snapped free, the metal cover rattled softly, followed by a whisper so close it felt like it brushed directly across my ear. I turned on every light, shaking, staring at the vent as if expecting a face to push through the slats and stare back at me. By morning, the tape lay curled on the floor, edges frayed, as though pulled from the other side by hands far more patient than mine. I installed a small microphone inside the duct, hoping to catch evidence I could show someone who wouldn't laugh me out of their apartment. Listening back, the recording captured faint breathing, slow and steady, followed by a phrase spoken in a voice too distorted to belong to anything human. The words repeated, each time more confident, like the voice learned how to shape itself around my language until it nearly sounded familiar. That night, I tried communicating, whispering, "Who are you?" into the vent, though the moment the question left my mouth, I regretted ever inviting a response. The reply came instantly. My own voice mimicked perfectly, answering my question with a quiet laugh that didn't belong to me. I covered the vent with furniture, shoving a dresser against it, so tightly the metal groaned beneath the weight, hoping pressure alone could silence curiosity. But the voice only got louder, vibrating through the closet vent, bouncing down the kitchen duct, filling the apartment like it was circling, deciding where to emerge next. I unplugged every appliance, terrified the building's wiring might somehow be carrying more than electricity, maybe something aware of how easily sound travels through old systems. When I finally tried to sleep, the whisper came from beneath the bed, rising through the floor register directly below me, repeating my breathing patterns until they synced perfectly. I rolled off the mattress and crawled across the room, shaking as I heard it inhale when I inhaled, exhale when I exhaled, like it practiced wearing my voice. The next morning, I found tiny scratches around every vent in the apartment, forming rings as though fingertips had traced the metal in a slow, thoughtful spiral. I called the landlord again, insisting something was in the ducts, but he only sighed and said every tenant hears strange things if they stay long enough. He mentioned the previous tenant complained about whispers too, right before she stopped answering calls and left without taking a single belonging. I packed my things by sunset, stuffing clothes into bags, refusing to spend another night in a place where my own voice waited for me behind the vents. But before I could leave, the whisper came again, louder now, echoing from every duct at once, forming a chorus of my voice, begging me not to go. The vents rattled violently, metal clanging as though something crawled quickly through them, moving room to room with unnatural speed, searching for whichever place I felt safest. I sprinted out the door, not bothering to lock it, hearing the last whisper slip through the vent nearest the hallway, a single word stretched long and pleading. It said, "Stay," using my exact tone, my rhythm, my breath, as if it wasn't a calling to me, but calling for the version of me it had been studying. I didn't look back, didn't stop until the building shrank behind me. Yet even now, I hear faint murmurs in the walls of my new place when the lights go out. Sometimes the whisper matches my breathing again, pacing me gently, waiting for the moment I get comfortable enough to forget which voice is actually mine. The thing that watched me through the power outage. The blackout hit just after midnight, swallowing the neighborhood in a silence so complete it felt rehearsed, as if the darkness had been waiting for the perfect moment to settle in. I grabbed my phone for light, expecting the usual hum of appliances shutting down, but the apartment sounded hollow. Like everything inside, it had stepped back and held its breath. The air felt heavier than it should have without electricity, thick with something warmer than darkness, something that made my skin prickle as if watched from multiple corners at once. I walked past the living room window and froze, sensing movement outside, the faint impression of someone standing too close, hidden by the absence of streetlights. When lightning flashed miles away, I saw the silhouette clearly, a tall figure pressed against the glass, its head tilted in a curious childlike angle that made the moment stretch uncomfortably long. I stumbled backward, but the next flash revealed nothing. Just empty glass and my own trembling reflection staring back at me through the dim leftover glow of my phone. I tried to convince myself it was pareidolia, just my mind filling the void with shapes. But the window still felt occupied, like something clung to the other side unseen. A soft tapping echoed from the back door, steady and polite, more like a knock someone practiced rather than one meant to be answered. I held my breath, listening as the tapping traveled along the wall, shifting toward the kitchen, timing each sound with the rhythm of my steps, like it mimicked my movement. The blackout stretched on, and the building seemed to grow colder with every minute, except the area near the vents, where a warm draft pulsed like breath against the floors. I passed the hallway mirror and nearly screamed when I noticed a long smudge trailing across its surface, a greasy line drawn by fingers, leaving streaks too long to be human. My phone buzzed unexpectedly, no service, no notifications, just the screen lighting on its own. Displaying the camera app pointed toward the hallway behind me. In the dim reflection, a dark shape crouched low near the bathroom door, unmoving, as if waiting for me to turn around and see it with my own eyes. I spun, but the hallway was empty, which somehow terrified me more because the air felt displaced, like something had just crawled out of sight. I barricaded myself in the bedroom with a dresser, dragging it across the floor until it sealed the door completely, though the silence afterward felt like a trap snapping shut. When I checked the window, condensation had formed on the inside, and a fresh handprint bloomed slowly in the fog, fingers splayed impossibly wide. Lightning flashed again, illuminating a shadow standing outside the glass. But the figure didn't seem blocked by the window. It leaned forward too smoothly, like its face pressed through. I backed into a corner, holding my phone like a shield, and watched as the handprint slid downward, leaving a trail as though someone dragged their nails lightly across the pane. Every part of me wanted to run, but the storm outside made the darkness feel endless, and I knew stepping out would only place me closer to whatever moved between the flashes. Suddenly, all the vents in the apartment groaned at once, metal expanding as if a wave of warmth passed through them, pushing air with the cadence of a slow exhale. I crawled onto the bed, staring at the bedroom door, waiting for the tapping to return. But the quiet that followed was worse anticipatory, deliberate, intelligent. Even in the silence, I sensed it standing on the other side of the door, not moving, just listening, studying my breathing like something learning the pattern of a living thing. The dresser trembled lightly, a single jolt like a shoulder pressed gently against it, testing the strength of my barrier with unsettling patience. Then came the whisper, not from the door, but from beneath the bed, a low murmur that stretched into syllables I didn't understand, curling around my feet like warm breath. I bolted upright, kneeling on the mattress, refusing to let my legs dangle anywhere near the floor, where the whisper deepened into a soft humming, almost pleased. As the storm finally rolled closer, thunder cracked overhead, lighting up the room long enough for me to see a dark shape flatten beneath the bed as if retreating deeper. The hum stopped instantly, replaced by the slow slide of fingernails scraping along the underside of the frame, tracing the wood like marking the contours of my outline. The power returned all at once with a sharp click, flooding the apartment with light and humming appliances that should have made me feel safe again. But the relief died the moment I stepped off the bed, because the underside of it was warm to the touch, as if something had been lying there long after the lights came back. I left the apartment before sunrise, grabbing only what I could carry, but even in the new place, the blackout memories follow me, especially on stormy nights. Sometimes, when lightning flickers through the windows, I catch a glimpse of a shadow crouched too close beneath the bed, waiting for the power to cut again.